Hello everyone, good evening and welcome back to another live stream. Let's give ourselves a second to warm the live stream up before we begin. Make sure everything's up and running. Okay. Here we go. Welcome back everyone to another live stream. Thank you for everyone who's been waiting for me. And thank you for everyone who is joining us as and when. For anyone who's new to this live stream, I try and do them regularly for my viewers, subscribers, and members. Obviously, in terms of participation in the conversation and chat, the members of this channel and subscribers can participate. So, as the title shows, really, George Galloway is back in UK politics, finally, a refreshing voice, a brave voice in the middle of cowardice, corruption, spinelessness, and genocide complicity. Finally, we have someone who says things as they are without fear of repercussion. Finally, we have someone who says things as they are, with no fear of retaliation, without no fear of media smearing. The man will stand in front of the media outlets and say things as they are. People try to criticize his stance, criticizing chants from the river to the sea. And the man, as usual, and as we have been used to him for very long, is standing up against everyone very bravely. No reluctance, no hesitation, which is how it should be. We finally have a voice in Westminster that is a voice of reason, that is a voice for humanity, for justice, for the people. Someone who stands up against something that everyone should be standing up against. Yet they're puppets. They're bought by this Zionist lobby and by their masters who donate for them and buy them. Finally, someone who has the guts. And clearly, the Prime Minister is worried. Rishi Sunak is worried. Of course he'd be worried. A slave Prime Minister, a genocide supporting Prime Minister will do whatever he can to try and spin things around against the man, will do whatever he can in spreading lies as usual, as normal. What's surprising? Really, he had this embarrassing press statement in front of Downing Street, saying things like groups trying to tear us apart, a shocking increase in extremist disruption and criminality. What else did he say? Galloway dismisses the horror of what happened on the 7th of October, glorifies Hezbollah, and he dares to say that calling, what's happening in terms of protests against the genocide, against the crimes against humanity, anti-democratic. I mean, who is this man fooling? Someone explain to me, really. I really fail to understand sometimes. Who's listening to him even? I mean, who's listening to him? I mean, you need to have heaps of ignorance and stupidity to listen to this puppet. Who does he think he is even? People are not listening to you. They're not listening to your bought mainstream media poison. They don't care about you. And you've seen it clearly by this win from George Galloway. The corrupt Labour withdrew their candidate from Rochdale, and because obviously they were anticipating defeat. And the second man who came second is an independent. This just highlights where we're going, really, and where things should go against the establishment, against the 2-3 party system, this corrupt 2-3 party system that we have. Clearly, these people are just puppets, they're simply puppets, front salespeople for the people who are behind them. Donors, military industry, cartel pharma, the Zionist genocidal lobby, right? Say this, say that, don't say this, don't say that. You're not representing the people. Spinning, obviously, hopefully we're going to reach the end of it sometime soon, the spinning, up until you spin it until you make it, with these tabloids, really. Because what really happens is, you know, they flash these, you know, lies, titles on, you know, fronts of newspapers, articles, with like blatant lies, really, to manipulate the people. Well, people are waking up. That's it. People are waking up. George Galloway is back, a brave person, standing up. This man is like really, really, we need to realize how brave he is. And I'm surprised not many people knew George Galloway. I think the first time I properly knew George Galloway was in 2006. Back then, we had no social media to the extent that we have nowadays. It was only, if you wanted to see what the resistance are doing, you need to go to their channels, their sources, a couple of Arab media outlets here and there. And I remember back then he had an interview with Sky News. The woman criticizing Hezbollah for attacking Israel. And he told her history didn't begin a couple of weeks ago. History didn't begin then, when you choose it to. This man puts the people in their place without hesitation. This is what we need. People who are not reluctant. People who are not hesitant. People who are not afraid. So big congratulations to George Galloway. I hope we have more people like him in power, and more people who support basic things, really, that everyone should be supporting. I mean, when you're talking about this genocide, it's a shameful world we're living in, really. People who are silent devils, you know, silent about the massacre. Politicians shamelessly supporting it, trying to spin things around to manipulate people. But hopefully, slowly but surely, we're going to get there with people like you and people who support what's right, support basic things that any decent human being with a functioning moral compass supports. And he also bravely supported a one state as well, George Galloway. The guy told him, oh, you don't... Israel's right to exist, and he told him no state has a right to exist. The Zionist occupation has no right to exist. You need bravery to say that, right? Even though it should be common. But the man's brave. He always has been. And it's great to finally see and hear this voice in Westminster that's full of these corrupt puppets who constantly repeat the establishment narrative and the lies and the manipulation as if they live on another planet, as if they don't live in this world. Really, repeating Zionist lies, repeating misinformation, and all of these things. So that's really what I wanted to speak about in this live stream primarily. And obviously I'll open the space for you in a sec. If you haven't watched my previous video that you can head out and watch after this live stream, if you have already, you can ask me any questions relating to it. I spoke about the recent march, 2,500 march from the brave Yemeni Ansarullah, the only noble Arab army. Not recognized, obviously, but we recognize it. You know, the whole world cannot recognize these people. We recognize them, and we'll say it as it is with them. The only noble, brave Arab army standing up against this genocide. And clearly, these guys, they have preparations. They were training a couple of months ago on attacking Israeli settlements and Israeli posts and even kidnapping soldiers. And it's clear that they're not stopping really with these attacks. They have plans. And some people ask me, like, if they would have to go to a ground invasion, if things break up and whatever. They have routes, don't worry. The Iraqi resistance was on the Lebanese border with Israel in the second week of the Al-Aqsa flood starting. So if the Yemenis want to reach there, they will reach there. That's considering that, for example, countries like Egypt don't join in yet in the war, or other countries, etc. But they can. They can. And if an all-out war breaks out, they will. They most likely will. The Yemen, and you need to understand, it's the Yemeni people. Ansarullah is a representation of the Yemeni people. The vibe in Yemen, you need to understand, these people are out in their millions every week supporting Palestine. Millions. When the Genocide Coalition started attacking them, more millions joined in. So they're representing their people. Unlike the UK, unlike the US, you have people, hundreds of thousands every single week for 5 months. And what they're saying here in the UK, oh no, that's enough, your message is heard. You're putting a strain on the police force. We've spent 226 million. Stop the genocide. Stop the genocide, you corrupt, ignorant fool. Stop the genocide. Stop spending billions in this unnecessary act of supporting genocide. What are you talking about? Same in other countries too, really. Blaming the people for protesting. What, do you want people to be quiet like you? Do you want them to be corrupt, silent, ignorant devils like yourselves? People still have humanity, unlike you, sold your souls to the devil. You think people are like you? No, not gonna stop. No one's gonna stop. Up until the massacre stop, up until the genocide stops. The delusional thinking. But again, they think they can kind of manipulate people and control through fear thing. But the only people who they control are people like them. They control the ignorant people, they control the manipulated people, they control the cowards. And slowly but surely, these people are gonna be going away. And the people won't be silent until this genocide stops. And not until this genocide stops, I'm telling you, until Palestine is liberated. Until Zionism, as a neo-colonial supremacist ethnocracy imposing its will on the indigenous people in Palestine ends completely. This is when people might stop. I also spoke about in my other video, if any of you who were interested, about the increased attacks in Gaza. I mean, I think the resistance is like quadrupling its attacks against these this failed army, this humiliated, defeated army, this genocidal. I'm not sure if you want to call it an army. This genocidal, offensive, occupying force. They've had a trap building in Khan Yunis, killing like 3, wounding 14. Israel admitted those, by the way. These are Israel admitted figures. And whenever Israel admits something, sometimes you can times it by 100, really. They're in desperate need of 7,500 soldiers. What does that mean? They have no capacity, no willingness. Most of their army is disabled or dead now, those who've been fighting in Gaza. If you say that I desperately need 7,500 soldiers, they're begging the Haredi, the Orthodox community now, trying to force them into conscription. Amal, thank you so much. Appreciate that. They're trying to convince them, you know, push them to go. Dude, you can get all of Israel to fight this war with you. The resistance won't stop. I'm telling you from now. I spoke about 2 messages from the resistance today. Abu Hamza, the SAQ, the armed wing of the PIJ, sent a message to Israel. He said, we have the capacity to continue fighting until we defeat the occupation. That's number 1. Secondly, there was a guy from Al-Qassam brigades. He said Netanyahu's promising us to dismantle the Al-Qassam forces. We promised to dismantle his army and send their bones back in coffins to Israel. This is the message that they're getting from the resistance 5 months in. This supposed, they were always telling us about this army. Oh my God, scaring people, this army. A paper tiger. Nothing. It's an illusion, this army. Only thing they can do is kill innocent people, starve people to death, bomb buildings, cowardly stuff. On the ground, defeated, shameful army, being humiliated and obliterated by the brave Palestinian resistance. So enough of me now. Let's open up the space for you guys to talk. I'm sure some of you will have some questions to talk about or any input. Obviously, thank you for all of your contributions. And I'm sorry in advance if I'm unable to reach all of the relevant comments or questions, but let me go through them. IG to me. Thank you very much. Thank you for everyone sending supers. I really, really appreciate that. You guys are amazing. Let's falafel or dolma. Yusuf Ali. Falafel. Falafel, dude. Not every day though. Be too much. Geopol, do you have any update on Ben Gvir's proposal to ban Ramadan prayers at Al-Aqsa Mosque? Is it likely to happen? Listen to what they said. There's a guy called Amichai Eliyahu. He is the heritage minister in Israel. He's from the same party as Ben Gvir. Do you know what he said? He said we need to erase Ramadan. Imagine what planet these people. We need to erase Ramadan from the existence. Like they're traumatized by everything to do with Islam and Ramadan. These people are such Islamophobic racists. We should stop being scared of Ramadan. It's like, who's scaring you, dude? We're fasting and praying. All you're doing in Ramadan is attacking people who pray in Al-Aqsa 24/7. And you're telling me you want to erase Ramadan. Oh my God. Inshallah, his face will be erased. But Netanyahu said he's following the recommendations of the police. He had a meeting with Itamar Ben Gvir, who's the Minister of National Security, and the police. Now, you need to understand the dynamics of it for those of you who don't know. Itamar Ben Gvir wanted full control over the police force. Bezalel Smotrich had a minister position in the Ministry of Defense, supposedly to take control of anything to do with the West Bank. They had lots of frictions. There's lots of internal problems. So Netanyahu needs to tame things down. Sometimes he'll go over Ben Gvir. Sometimes he'll allow him to do something. It's very, very, delicate, to say the least. So they had a meeting. Netanyahu said, we've heard the proposition of Ben Gvir, and I heard the recommendation of the police, and I'm going to follow the recommendation of the police. What was the recommendation of the police? We're going to allow them to pray. Will it be implemented? Is it going to be a case of just talk? We don't know. Ramadan has to come. So far, they still have the restrictions on prayers. What a shameful existence do we live in? Imagine, where are the Muslim countries and Arab countries? Al-Aqsa occupied. People kill people in Al-Aqsa, prevent them from going in, and they're sitting there in their, with their luxurious lifestyles, ignoring what's happening. What the hell is wrong with this world? But he said that. Obviously, we have to go and see what happens in Ramadan. But so far, he's not bowing down to Ben Gvir, at least through his statements. Conrad Jones, do you think Israel will attack Lebanon with full force as they have been threatening? There is a high likelihood. Look, Division 36 is there. It's been there for 2 months now. Division 36 is the most sophisticated, advanced I mean, if you want to call it sophisticated, really, they failed in Gaza, so there's no sophistication about it. But anyway, the oldest division in Israeli army with the most advanced techniques, etc., most expertise, all of these things, even though they were defeated in Gaza. They're in there in Lebanon. They're on the border. They're ready. There's always increased statements and tone from Israel that we're going to attack. Gallant said the war in Lebanon is separate from Gaza. If Gaza ceasefire happens, it's not going to happen here. We're going to continue up until we reach what we want in Lebanon. We've heard a report from Arabi Post about Nasrallah meeting Qa'ani, supposedly getting a green light to go on a full-scale war if Israel attacks. With or without it, I think Hezbollah will know when the time is right to launch a full-scale attack. We haven't reached there. We could reach there in any given moment, really. Israel's always been escalating. They're not stopping with their bullying, typical arrogant bullying criminal behavior. And they only, they've proved to the whole world that they only understand the language of force. There is no reasoning with them. Supremacist, arrogant, neo-colonial punks. This is how they learn. They haven't showed any other way throughout their history. The prime minister who wanted to achieve peace, they killed him. So that's the world we live in at the moment. So I wouldn't be surprised if there is, and if there will be a full-out war, it will be a very quick downfall, suicide mission for Israel. Let's go to your next question. Marcus Pute, Benny Gantz is supposed to go to the US. What is that? Another way of the US going around Bibi? And do the US know about the losses IDF is suffering on the ground? Look, Benny Gantz is a potential replacement for Bibi. In the Israeli polls, he's the favorite now. If any elections happen tomorrow, Benny Gantz will be the prime minister. Countries have already been dealing with him as if he is the prime minister for the past couple of months. Some Arab states do. Clearly, Western powers are trying to do that. America is speaking to Bibi, but Bibi is ignoring them. He's bowing down to the right wing. So they're trying to make it work with other figures, and Bibi is paranoid about that, Benjamin Netanyahu. Can they go around Bibi? It will be a coup if they go around Bibi. I mean, when Blinken tried to meet the IDF chief on his own, the Israeli government were outraged, and they banned him from doing so, and they prevented him from going to Karm Abu Salim crossing, Kerem Shalom in Hebrew, to see and confirm that there's aid going in, etc., supposedly because they couldn't prevent a protest from happening, which is nonsense. There's a lot of tension, but if the United States administration is serious about what they're doing, they will completely stop arming Israel. Not just stop arming Israel, put an embargo on them, completely boycott them, not veto things against them, and properly take action. We don't buy these things. I mean, now they've approved airdrops on Gaza. And again, you're approving airdrops on a population. You're confirming that there's starvation and desperate measures that people are living in. You have a culprit, though. Why are you dropping aid only? Okay, aid, good, but why are you dropping aid to the sea so people can go and swim and get it? When you can force this genocidal state to open up the borders and take down their genocidal government. Seriously, if they're really serious. But they are talking to people because Netanyahu is so unreasonable. He's really unreasonable. He's very difficult to deal with. The man is a maniac. He's a psychopathic lunatic. Self-obsessed narcissist, Benjamin Netanyahu. He'll sell his mother for himself. He'll sell anything for his own political career. And many people in Israel know that too, let alone in the United States. Van Moore, what do you think about Putin calling for a Palestinian state? He always called for a Palestinian state, Putin. However, his efforts were limited because usually the people who have more say when it comes to Israel, obviously the United States, it's their baby, really. In terms of force, they obviously have diplomatical backing, some military aid from other countries, including the UK, etc. But he's always been for a Palestinian state, and so is China. Like, China is one of very few countries that actually has an embassy, not a mission, of Palestine, signaling that they recognize Palestine as a state. So it's not new. However, let's see how things develop with his meetings that he's holding, what they lead to. And let's hope we see some unity with the Palestinian movements and more involvement when it comes to Russia. Not that we're relying like on Russia heavily or whatever, but it's a hegemony now. And it's a hegemony by a very corrupt, evil force, which is the US administration. It shouldn't be like that. And thank you for all of your comments. And Regina, thank you for your super. Let's see. See, some of you commented on erasing Ramadan. Yeah, this is what we deal with. Okay. Mahmoud for president. Do you think so? Okay, let's liberate Palestine and we'll see. Nasser, thank you. Nasser asked a question. Thank you very much for this. How do we trust that Hamas gives us regarding IDF casualties? Also, how did Israel win all wars with Arab nations in history if they are this incompetent? So number one, with regards to Hamas saying that how many Israelis die, they will usually have verified images of them, right? Dying completely. Like, if they bomb a tank, most likely, or everyone died in the tank, they wouldn't say that they killed them. They'll only say that they definitely killed them is if they verify the killing. They see the bodies, see the evacuation, for example, the strategic point of the place, for example, they detonated the house, for example. It's completely flattened on everyone inside. They bombed the tank and no rescues come for 24 hours, and that's happened many times in Gaza, and it's roasting and it's burning. You know, an ant wouldn't live there. So they're pretty reliable from what I've seen and from the confirmations, what they say. Obviously, the number is far higher than what Hamas says, number one. Number two, when Israel says 30,000 disabled, 30,000 disabled, the ratio of urban warfare, and we're talking about a war that's way more complicated than urban warfare, is 1 dead per 3 injured. If 30,000 are disabled, how many are injured? 70,000? How many are dead? 20, 30, 40,000, right? So it's very, very likely when it comes to this. Let's go to the next one. Hi Mahmoud, what are the chances yourself and George Galloway have a chat? Sure, he would welcome you. Yeah, well, maybe one day we'll do something. I'm sure, you know, me and him, we have lots of stuff, but hopefully today we'll meet. If I do, I'll definitely post a video with me and him, and I'm sure many of you will like it. But I'm really glad he's back in UK politics, to be honest with you. I remember him from the Respect days, and now he's a very good, solid voice. Angela Brody, congratulations on being a member for 1 month. Assalamu alaikum, good evening, wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Mahmoud, great Rochdale by-election win by George Galloway. Will his entry into parliament help change UK stance on Gaza? I'm confused by US airdrops. Is Biden groveling to votes? Look, the mere fact that he's there saying things, that's number one. If you'd rather go to a cemetery than go listen to people in Westminster. I'd rather go spend time praying on dead people than go to Westminster and listen to these politicians when it comes to this genocide. So seriously, I'd rather go to the cemetery than go to Westminster. Now you have someone who's brought life back to Westminster. not acting like the Palestinians are equal with the Israelis in terms of, powers, right? This obsession with condemnation of acts that Israel committed, like the massacres in the Nova Festival and in Kibbutz Be'eri. Do you know what I mean? This guy, he'll be a fresh voice. How? Look, I'm not sure he'll change the official UK stance. It needs deep change. This needs deep change. And you're talking about an establishment position ever since this shameful Balfour Declaration and their complicity with the... Don't forget, the British Empire, they committed so much evil around the world, and they split nations as any empire, divide and conquer, right? Keep long-lasting conflicts. This is what they've done. This is what the US tries to do in many parts that it occupied. So it's not something that'll change in one night. Do you know what I mean? But the fact that we have a voice there is very important. In terms of US airdrops and the votes, absolutely it's linked, because come on, man, you're supporting them. You're supporting them. You're vetoing a ceasefire, for heaven's sake. You've been vetoing a ceasefire from day one that Russia and China proposed, by the way. You're constantly telling us about these evil Chinese and Russians, and they wanted a ceasefire, and you vetoed it. The supposedly humanitarian, democratic, human rights calling nations, right, in countries against a ceasefire, right? So definitely he wants votes, but people are not stupid. That's why Sunak is talking about a ceasefire more now. But he knows how it affects people. And they're worried, and good, let them be worried. Yasmina Aburumi Santana, thank you so much. You said we all have a role, and thank you for your service. You're more than welcome. Thank you and all of you. Okay. Ansarullah is saying, Mahmoud, which Israeli division controls the nukes? Who has the control of launching them? Netanyahu alone, gallant. Okay. Number one, Israel is shady about the nuclear project. They didn't openly declare that they have nuclear. They gave hints that they do. They spoke about them. They threatened to use them. Or, to be more accurate, a government minister said we should use them in Gaza. So if you talk about a minister in government saying we should use nukes, you're admitting that you have nukes. In terms of the decision to use them, I would assume it would be a multifaceted decision that will have to be cross-approved by many figures in Israel, not just a single person, because that would be a catastrophe if that was the case. I mean, even if you talk about the United States, Russia, countries, nuclear weapons, there's a process of approval here. We're talking about the most dangerous weapon on the planet. I hope we don't reach a stage of nukes, right? Not against anyone. It's awful, and people, innocent people, will die, right, in masses. We don't want it, but it would be a complicated type of situation where many people would need to approve it. Nasser Ghannam, thank you so much. How did the incompetent Israel army beat the Arabs' wars of history? Interesting question. The Arab armies were different, and Israel was different. The level, look, many Arab armies were very poorly equipped. They were unprepared. They just some of them just had their what's it called, statehood from previous Ottoman Empire or from British rule, for example. They weren't prepared, and some of them were complicit. Don't forget that. Some of them did it just for show. Okay, so things have changed. Things have changed massively in the past 50, 60 years. We're no longer in 1967, right? The Egyptian army isn't the same. The other armies in the country, in the region, aren't the same. And the resistant movements are not the same. Everything, and Israel isn't the same. It isn't this scary type of force that's backed by the US and we have to listen or we die thing, right? Some people are still afraid of them, but look, The Badger, how far is Yemen actually capable in escalation-wise against Israel? I would imagine that they have a lot of capabilities to escalate further. So far, think about it this way, they've used UAVs, ballistic missiles, they've used recently torpedoes, submarine against the coalition forces. They're increasing their level of sophistication, diversification, and attacks. And when someone acts and says we have surprises, I believe them. So because they acted, they didn't just say, they said initially, oh, we have surprises. They showed us surprises. So if you tell me there's another surprise and I'm preparing, I'll believe you, because clearly there's something going on there. Let's go to the next question. Mystic City, do you think Al-Sisi got paid by UAE, the massive Ras Al Khaimah deal, to allow the ethnic cleansing of Gaza into Sinai? I don't think these two are related. He was already offered masses of funds. He was offered to lift all of Egypt's debt, and Egypt has a bad economic crisis. He could have accepted this 4 months ago. He's shifting away from Western powers slowly. They just joined the BRICS alongside Ethiopia, Iran, and the UAE. People need to realize that. And not everything is black and white when it comes to this. I don't think so. It will be a devastating blow to him to be seen as someone who's complicit when it comes to this genocide. And you need to remember, when the aid wasn't getting into Gaza in the past, they blocked aid for like 4 or 5 days because they want to starve the people. They're evil. It wasn't Egypt stopping them. It was Israel that was stopping them, because they have a trio agreement, Israel, Egypt, and the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank. It has to be approved by 3 parties. The problem here is that Egypt still abides by it. Our argument here is, ditch this bloody agreement. You have a genocide next to you. That's the thing here. Do you understand? So, but I don't think that it's like bribery money for and look, if he has, we will see. We'll see it happening. So far, it hasn't happened. And thank you for everyone sending supers. David Davis, hi, great show. Thank you. I appreciate as an American, I'm horrified, furious, grief, guilt, embarrassment that we tolerate this done in our name, Christians and Jews. Look, I think so long as you're taking the right position, there's nothing to be ashamed of. These people are not representing you. I don't care who they are, right? So the people standing up for what's right. Look, if I was in if I was a Muslim in a Muslim majority country, and this Muslim majority country is committing this in the name of Islam, I'd also be horrified, to be fair. So it's not like, I feel the same thing. But what I'm saying is, so long as you're on the right side of history, bro, you're doing an amazing job. So is everyone else, really. And we should just focus on what we can effectively do. And that's the main thing. No need to have the harsh feelings. And thank you for your contribution. Logic, Lemonade, do you think Hamas had pre-warning that Israel was going to put contracts out on the Palestinian gas reserves on October the 30th? It was slightly before October the 30th, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was the 26th that they started handing out these contracts. Look, they didn't declare it as a main thing for their actual Al-Aqsa flood. Did they have prior knowledge? They could have had prior knowledge. Look, they have prior knowledge of very secretive IDF stuff, IOF stuff, right? Even recently with the Hayy Zaytun battles, we spoke about it. They were anticipating them. They knew what they were doing. How do you have that? They were waiting for them to go into certain areas, going from the back, Anticipation. This is not just good defense, right? This is intel. And this is not just intel from the ground, by the way. So I wouldn't be surprised if they had lots of information about them. But I'm not sure how related it is to this. However, what Hamas did achieve in Al-Aqsa flood is this global level of awareness when it comes to this. Obviously, Israel also contributed to that by its atrocities, by its genocide, by not stopping, by proving to the people, everyone in the world, anyone who had an ounce of hesitation, that we are a genocidal supremacist occupation and we don't deserve to have a state. Israel did that, not just Hamas. Okay, I had a president comment, and then Mar-Lago saying, Mahmoud, you may want to think about a political career. It would be great to see you join George Galloway. Look, I don't know, maybe. I don't really have politics in mind. To me, but obviously it's not something that would completely rule out. I mean, when I was in Israel, I participated politically slightly, but then I decided to boycott also politics. As could be, I don't know really. It depends on the situation, the developments, the level of effect. So from my perspective, any type of action, anything you do, it's the effect, it's the positive impact. If there can be positive impact through something in politics, good. But we've seen in history, the positive impact doesn't always just come from something in politics, right? But yeah, who knows what the future holds. Let's go to the next question. Is Turkey, okay, Omsi, is Turkey planning a joint security arrangement with Egypt against the Zionist entity for future deterrence and leverage? Look, the recent strategic cooperation council that Turkey and Egypt formed together after President Erdogan's visit is very significant. It's very, very significant. Turkey has been boycotting Turkey for the past 12 years, and now they decided to form this strategic partnership that they should have had, really. But obviously, Erdogan was against the military coup and all of these things. But it's very symbolic that it's happening now with this genocide. And I mean, Palestine is a cause that unites, and it's a good thing. I'm sure they have some sort of coordination between them that you wouldn't really hear much about, because they would want to keep it on the low as much as possible, because they're both, like Turkey is in the NATO, and Egypt has relations with almost every country in the world, including their historical enemy that occupied their land, Israel. So they would keep these things on low, but there's definitely a formation of something that includes other countries as well, and not just Egypt and Turkey. Marvin Vergas, understand Iran has the third largest Jewish population. They practice in peace. Rabbi in Iran blocked by West for comments. I'm not sure if it's the third largest community, but there is a religious community. They practice freely, and they practice, by the way, with their like they have their own religious laws implemented in certain locations. You have the Russian community in Oblast that's been there for a very long time. The Jewish community, sorry, and that's in Russia. Obviously, that's like an autonomy. But the biggest amount of Jewish people outside of Israel is the United States of America, definitely. Then I'm not sure if it's Iran really, but they do. And look, the Jewish people lived in peace with in Arab and Muslim countries all along. But then Zionism came, tried to convert Judaism into an ethnicity and created hostilities, started to create hostilities. It's a filthy neo-colonial project, I'm telling you, of division. Geopol, wow, just saw Israelis protesting in Tel Aviv against the starvation of Gazans. They were holding blood-soaked bags of flour. More power to them. Some hope that they are not all brainwashed. Yes, look, we always say that. Many people in Israel like that. Obviously, the loud majority is not like that, but you still have a good amount of people in Israel who are brave, who will go and say things as they are despite censorship. I mean, I've been there, I've seen many of these people. Some of them identify as Palestinian Jews inside of Israel. And yeah, these people, there's many of them, and they have very good voices. There are definitely reasonable, brave people in Israel. Okay, let's go to your next question. Ashkiro Muksi. How do you think this genocide in Gaza will end? Will this be the war that liberates Gaza? Look, when I woke up on the 7th of October and I read the news and what happened, I thought that Israel as we know it ended on the day. It ended, it simply ended. But it was like, because any potential escape out of it is devastating. What I thought on the day is, okay, if they invade Gaza, it's going to be hell. People will not like it. It's going to create a constant problem for Israel. If they don't invade Gaza, that means they live with this threat next to them. In both cases, that's a proper lack of security. That's a shock to the system. That's the biggest shock to the system. And indeed, it was. Now they're saying, we live in the worst position in our history. In our 75 years, we weren't in this position. So, but obviously what you need to understand from this, not everything is imminent. There's procedures to this. So you could have ongoing temporary solutions. You can have an ongoing conflict and things escalate. Things can de-escalate. But I think this is probably the beginning of the end, in my opinion. Okay. Z, Hala Mahmoud, hope all is well. Question, why do countries like Jordan, Saudi, and the US collectively get a sudden change of conscience by providing aid, though peanuts, to Gaza? Like you said, though peanuts. It's not a change of conscience. I mean, lots of it is show, really. Look, every aid is good. Look, the people love it. People love any short-term relief. They haven't eaten anything. Some of this aid has basic food that they haven't eaten for months, like cheese or a bit of meat, bread, stuff like that. But what kind of world do we live in? For people to go swim in the sea in the middle of the winter, in the cold. Okay, we're heading towards spring now, but still. To get food. And when you have the capacity to take higher measures, right? So good for every aid that goes in, fine, but it's not enough. And you can't help but think, lots of it is show, right? Uh, Nazia Sali, Assalamu alaikum. How do Gazans leave and enter Gaza, especially now during the war? Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. They don't. The only people who do, they have exceptional approval, mostly by Egypt through Rafah, to go and get urgent. There's like probably 20, 30,000 who went to be treated in Egypt, in Turkey, in Qatar, alongside probably other countries. And they will get back through Rafah most likely. But the majority, they're restricted from leaving. And I've heard stories directly, like people are stuck there who need urgent aid. And the people who suffer mostly are like young men, because they're seen as those who are capable to kind of handle more and stuff. But some of them have bad injuries, and they don't allow them to go out, and they always suspect that they might have something to do with the armed groups in Gaza. So it's a very bad situation. Hupo, thank you so much. To what extent do you think Zionist rage springs from the envy of the Ishmaelites? Many blessings. Look, I think it's more supremacy than envy. A very highly supremacist country, Israel is, a highly arrogant supremacist state. They think they are the thing and everyone is below them. The way they talk, the way they express themselves, the way they dehumanize other people, supremacy, arrogance, entitlement. That's the main thing about them. And then obviously that leads to dehumanization of everything else as others. And then they justify everything to do with them. It's in their nature. Apart from few, obviously, right? So there are some who are not like that. But this is how Israel is as a country, as a state. And this obviously affects the majority of the people in it, sucking up this racist, supremacist ideology. So you need to fight against that to be enlightened, right? You need a battle against the norm. That's why I really, appreciate people in Israel who go against it, because they learn about it from day one, from school, from nursery, all of this ideology, indoctrinated really. And you need to go against it to get out of this brainwashing. Blue herring, do Israelis really believe that the chant from the river to be anti-Semitic? No, they've politicized it, of course, because it's a very popular chant. Anything that receives some sort of popularity, they need to go against it. How do they go against them? By the overuse, over-weaponization of a term that's actually unsubstantiated, which is anti-Semitism. I spoke about this before, I'll speak about it again. It isn't anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism is hating what's Semitic. What's Semitic about Israel? They use this term, they started using this term after the establishment of the Zionist movement to support the ideology that Jews are an ethnicity. Therefore, criminalize the criticism of this ideology that implemented the state as a racism against the Jewish people. Hatred against Jews is not anti-Semitism. Hatred against Jews, discrimination against Jews is anti-Judaism, like anti-Christianism, anti-Islam. This is the real term. The term anti-Semitism is malicious in intent. It's there to combine race with religion. It's like me criticizing Saudi Arabia, right? And then being called anti-Muslim. I'm not anti-Muslim if I criticize Saudi Arabia or Egypt or any other Muslim majority country. I have a political opinion. They use that to psychologically control you and instill fear in you that you're deemed as a racist person if you criticize this Zionist, genocidal, satanic death cult. They don't really believe, they don't believe themselves, these people. They know they're liars, many of them. Do you think they believe this idea of facade? Many of them are liars. It's there to manipulate the masses. Those who really know and see, hey, no, they're liars. Everything anti-Semitism. Obviously, some of them believe it, but obviously the politicians in the West here, they sell it to stop criticism of this satanic death cult and claim that they defend Jewish people. I'm sorry, no, you're not defending Jewish people. You're not defending the Jewish people who are protesting against Israel. You're not. You're discriminating against them by calling it a hate march. Clearly, you're protecting the Zionists, the genocidal supporters, and trying to scare people by using the term anti-Semitism, right? And look at I mean, it's been so weaponized, this term, like the definition of the IHRA, which is a Zionist organization, by the way, of anti-Semitism, 14 definitions, 7 of which relate to Israel. What kind of definition is that? It's like me giving you a definition of anti-Islam and telling you, hold on a second, if you criticize Saudi Arabia, if you criticize any other Muslim country, you're an anti-Muslim. I'm criticizing the political entity. Who cares about the majority? I'll criticize any country in the world. I have the liberty and freedom to say that. Simple. To the highest extent as well, and no one will stop me from saying that. But they obviously, you know, try and use it to the high heavens, and it works on some people. On cowards, it works. Izzy, what role is the Muslim Brotherhood playing in this conflict? Not a very big role, to be fair, in terms of a parental organization, because most of them are in prison in Egypt. Most of them died in prison in Egypt after the coup. However, when you talk about the Muslim Brotherhood, it's the ideology. If you want to talk about the ideology, it's there. The two big resistance movements fighting in Gaza, the original roots of their ideology is Muslim Brotherhood roots. However, the Muslim Brotherhood ideology proved throughout history that it's a dynamic ideology that evolves depending on interest in country and state, etc. Hamas is an organization. There is a Muslim Brotherhood organization linked with Hamas in Gaza, but Hamas as a movement, they went out of the Muslim Brotherhood umbrella just before they decided to participate in armed resistance against Israel. They consulted the leadership in Egypt. I think it was around 1986. The leadership of the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt said, it's not the time. Then they said, I'm sorry, I have my own idea, and it's time to participate in armed resistance. Obviously, the Islamic Jihad, the PIJ, they did it before them, and they already also had links with Iran and stuff. But in terms of ideology, it's definitely affecting them. There is undeniable role of ideology and faith when it comes to the resistance. You have the two biggest resistance groups. They Islamic ideology, Islamic faith, you know, they say we fight for the sake of God, right? It's undeniable that it's there. As an organization, though, it's a little bit different. Now, as an ideology, as faith, as belief, it is absolutely there. Okay. Let's see where we reached. Violet said something important. The UK government accepted the IHRA definition and examples. It's lost a lot of people their jobs. You're right. You see, this is what they do. When you're a criminal and you conduct criminal activities, you try and implement laws to protect your criminality. And that's what they do with the IHRA, right? And other laws in relation to privacy, in relation to protesting. Now they're talking about banning protests in England to do with the, because it puts a strain on the police force. Yeah, and the billions that you spend to the military industrial complex, they put a strain on people hardly making it and can't buy food properly and go to food banks and live on the streets. That's also a big strain, a far greater strain as a matter of fact than. But it just shows you how twisted these people are, how twisted and corrupt politics is, whether in the UK or the US. Corrupt to the T, right? It's rotten. You can't support something like that unless you're rotten and you're corrupt, and that's what they are. So they'll accept these definitions, and as long as they serve them. Yet at the same time, they outright support racism and division and have poisonous statements against communities in Britain, right? And in other countries too. But if you're talking about Britain on its own, for example, and they always try and hide under this, oh, so anti-Semitic, this anti-Semitic. Go hold the anti-Semitic term and shove it up your, do you know what I mean? You know what I mean. Okay. Kofi said before October 7th, there were around 15 to 20K living in Cyprus, but people reckon the number has more than doubled since. Yeah, lots of them do go to Cyprus, and there are much, much bigger numbers. I said previously also, before this war happened, you already had a movement with the judicial reform of Israelis fleeing Israel. So you had groups on Facebook called Migrating Together. They would consult each other as to which countries are good in terms of, finance, housing, rent, life freedoms. Are they safe for Israelis? All of these things. So you already had that before. And then it accelerated. Numbers have doubled, tripled, quadrupled in many countries. Talking about approximately over 2 million after the war, which makes it to a total of over 3 million altogether. So these people are everywhere. They're in Portugal, they're in the UK, they're in the US, other parts of Europe, some other countries too, in Latin America. So yeah, absolutely. And if you have any more questions, just send me the last couple of questions before we wrap up. Kirk is asking me about the hoodie. No, just a different look today. Shall I get a cap next time? Maybe I'll wear a cap as well, a black cap. Joe Spector. Okay, this is the final question that I have here. So we'll finish up with it unless, obviously, if there's anything else relevant. Joe Spector is asking, how many fighters did Al-Quds have before this conflict? How many are left? If you mean Saraya Al-Quds, which is the armed wing of the PIJ, they don't really declare the exact numbers. But estimates are like in the tens of thousands, really. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if, look, I wouldn't be surprised if they're in the hundreds of thousands. They never declare the outright number, so they don't give information out and too much intel to Israel. But look, they're there. They're still fighting. They're effective. They record what they do. They're sophisticated. And they're putting Israel to shame. They're defeating an army. This is David versus Goliath. This is a proper David versus Goliath. So regardless of the numbers, it's effectiveness. It's how well they're doing that really matters. Irma, thank you, and Alex, thank you so much. Much respect and love to you and everyone supporting and sending supers. I have a couple of, I have one more question here. Soul Strategy, has the Zionist nuclear capability been destroyed, dear brother? Look, the only attack on Israel's nuclear plant in Dimona, there was one attack during this war declared. There might have been others that were not declared. But there are a couple of comments here. Number one, some people say it's empty now, after we've had revelations previously about it. Usually when it comes to the warheads, they're not necessarily on the land. They can be in a submarine somewhere or whatever. People need to understand that it's not like the arsenal of the nuclear is in Israel in that particular location. So even if it is attacked, you know, countries are smarter than just putting all of their nuclear in one place. But we haven't had any... obviously, they deny its existence, let alone admitting that it was destroyed, you know. I have another interesting question. Okay. Oh, you've had more questions. Okay, Paul Ruderstaller, has the US sent in special ops into Gaza? I personally knew from the beginning of the war that they sent an elite force to try and invade a part of Gaza with an IDF force, and all of them were killed, approximately 20. The second report was from a Palestinian resistant movement at the time, confirming that they had speakers of foreign languages fighting in Gaza. Recently, we've had Aaron Bushnell's letter saying that there are special forces inside the tunnels in Gaza supporting this genocide. However, these could be limited units, right? I mean, if we want to take that as a confirmation per se with regards to the US's complicity with this war, we don't need that because they support Israel with weapons. They support them diplomatically, militarily. So even if you don't send boots on ground, you're a criminal like them. You're supporting them. You're probably even worse because you're the enabler. However, I don't think even if they wanted to, they will be very successful. I mean, look at Aaron Bushnell's message. It's a very strong message. And look at the message from Israel. They're being obliterated to pieces by the resistance in Gaza. They're incapable of completing any of their tasks apart from massive destruction and abusing the civil society and starving them and trying to starve them. They're a failure. Tens of thousands injured, tens of thousands killed. They're in urgent need of 7,500 soldiers, probably even more. That's just what they admit. and what's hidden is far worse. This is a failed state, a failed army, an unwilling army engaged in genocide. So I don't think they will have any luck in, attracting anyone further from abroad to Hi. Ala Selnicina, I'm sorry if I mispronounced it. I'm Jewish, but I support Palestine. Beautiful. Look, I respect everyone who highlights that they're Jewish and support Palestine. I really love that. Do you know why? Firstly, because we already highlight this. Like personally, I highlight this from very long time. When I was in Israel, I've seen many Israelis against the state, Israeli Jews. But now, especially during acts of war, it's so important to highlight it. Not that, not from an aspect of people were like saying that the Jews are connected with Israel, even though they try and speak in the name of Judaism. But to be honest with you, the more Jewish voices we have, the more these other people can shut up who say it's anti-Semitic and it's like as if it's against Jews, really. But really, all power to you. I mean, I took many selfies with some of the anti-Zionist Jews in previous protests that I posted on the community as well. Just to highlight also to the people that, look, please, I'm Jewish, I'm anti-Zionist, or some of them are obviously secular, some of them are the religious Jews. It's important. So thank you so much for highlighting that. Okay. Joe Spector, but will they use it as a Samsung option? So far, they have proved that they don't care about their own people. They don't care about their own citizens. They don't care about their own soldiers. So far, Israel killed 70 Israeli prisoners in Gaza. So far, they killed hundreds of their own soldiers in Gaza. Israeli reports said that a quarter of the Israeli soldiers who died in Gaza died due to crossfire. They deliberately, knowingly murdered Israeli soldiers held by the resistance to kill Palestinian resistance movement. They knowingly, deliberately killed Israeli prisoners and still do. The resistance just confirmed that 7 more were killed by Israel because they know they're held by the resistance and because they don't want to pay the price. But the resistance sent them a message. They told them, even if you keep one, that one, you'll pay the price for all of them with that one person. That's the message. And this is the stupidity. But this just highlights how much of a death cult this country is. It's a genocidal death cult. It's a war machine that eats itself up. They use their own people as cannon fodder. So there's an argument that they're using the Samsung option already on themselves. Right? Obviously, the Samsung option is, okay, we're going, let's take everyone else with us. I'm sure the people at the top wouldn't want that. I'm sure many of them will. They'll kill the people because they don't care about the people. If you cared about the people, again, I repeat, let's say I'm Israel, okay? And the 7th of October happened, a massive thing. Let's say I'm Israel and the 7th of October happened and I don't value the Palestinian life. Let's say that, but I value the Israeli life, for argument's sake. Okay, they kidnapped 280 people. The first thing I'd do is, hold on a second, I'm not gonna bomb anything because they can be anywhere. So even though I don't value the Palestinian life and consider them to be animals, right, for argument's sake, how am I gonna start shooting everywhere? They started shooting everywhere, deliberately. Some of the first Israeli prisoner that went out, Yocheved Lifshitz, she said, when we were kidnapped, with every move we were making, Israel was bombing us. What is that? What is that? Someone explain to me. How can someone explain the Nova Festival massacre that the Israeli Apaches committed? Do they care about Israeli life? They couldn't care less. They were shooting left, right, and center. How can someone explain Israeli tanks in Israeli kibbutzes shooting at Israeli homes? How can someone explain that? Is this a country that's worried about its own citizens? It eats itself up. And this is what it's doing. And many people are waking up to it. Many people in Israel are fleeing Israel. Many people are realizing it and are speaking up. And we always speak about them. But many others are still deluded and still still getting stuck with their twisted ideology and racist supremacist narrative. Someone saying, I thought Bibi was buying Indian and other mercenaries. Look, the only thing that I have a confirmation of in terms of Indians in Israel is Indian labor, because they're preventing the Palestinians in the West Bank from working, and they used to approve some very small amount of workers in Gaza that they're obviously not providing, capital punishment. So they need labor, you know, people are fleeing the country. Everyone is in the war, reservist, non-reservist. Who's going to fill up the gap, right? So that's why they had this deal with India. But in terms of army, again, I don't think you'll be seeing Indian people fighting for Israel. Chocolate pudding, thank you so much for your super. And Patricia as well, thank you. I'm glad the videos are helpful, Patricia. Chocolate pudding, Allah yahmik Zaim. Thank you. Isn't it crazy that this is happening in 2024? The world is waking up to what has been going on for decades. Yeah, finally. Look, we've known this. Obviously, you know this since you were born, really, as a Palestinian. But yeah, now, how can they hide it? Like I said, Israel's doing everyone. Israel conducted the biggest pro-Palestine campaign by committing this massacre and genocide. They made themselves look so bad for what they are, not look as in falsely look and, oh, I'm doing it. No, they exposed themselves for what they truly are on a massive scale. And it takes a deeply ignorant person not to realize that. Like, you need to be deeply either apathetic or ignorant, or to support such a thing, God forbid, you need to be, I don't know, one of Satan's friends. But yeah, the world is definitely waking up to it finally. And we will hopefully reach a solution soon. Sharif Smith, thank you. Let's see. Okay, so we had more questions coming in. Mosfet, Yemen prepares to invade Israel. So in relation to that video that I spoke about, Yemen had a march, and I also spoke about their previous preparations of invasions of Israeli settlements. Okay? What I was highlighting there, the Yemenis previously spoke about surprises they conducted. And what I was arguing there is, don't be surprised if they do take action on the ground, because they were preparing on invading Israeli posts, Israeli settlements, kidnapping Israeli soldiers. In terms of access, they can go and access from Syria and from Lebanon. Iraqi resistance was on the Lebanese border with Israel, videoing it in the middle of October. So in terms of line, they have a line. If you don't want to talk about going through the Red Sea or through any land with countries that are more aligned with Israel or are more hostile towards them. Fran, he said, that's just crazy. You don't cannibalize your own people. That's how they are. Look, this is how they're proving. They are really. Okay. Sami Ben Bella, thank you so much. Okay, let's see if we have any more before we wrap up. Deep divers about my Satan comment, Satan's friend. They teach Satan himself. He's ashamed of them now. Kirk, thank you, brother. And thank you for your membership. Okay, Geopol, can they access from the Red Sea? They can potentially access from the Red Sea, yes, if it reaches that stage. And don't forget, if something bigger breaks out, then you're talking about other involvement too, not just the resistance countries and movements. Allah, I'm Palestinian, born in Israel, in a city called Haifa. There we go, you had the answer. Okay. Occupied Palestine, yes. Okay, there we go. Okay, thank you so much, guys. Let's wrap it up. It's been really nice being with you in this live stream. Thank you for all of your contributions. And everyone sending supers and everything. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you very, very much. And thank you for your patience if you're watching and waiting for the answers, and obviously going through the questions with me as well. Just a reminder, I'm here, inshallah, hopefully, every day with the live stream, apart from the video. Just to obviously give my viewers and members and subscribers some time to go through everything like we did today, obviously. And we usually do it at 9:30. If there are any amendments or whatever, then I usually let you know. So apart from that, enjoy your weekend. Enjoy the rest of your day or night or afternoon, depending on where you are. Thank you so much, and I'll see you soon in the next video. Take care, guys. Bye.